Hey, before we start today's episode of Second Player Press Start, um, video is hard. So I know we had some technical issues in our last episode. The audio still came out fine, um, but the video about an hour in turned into a slideshow. For this one, it looks like the slideshow happened a little bit sooner, so I apologize for that. I think I have everything figured out. Um, so yeah, you can still listen to this podcast. You can still watch the video version, but it'll kind of turn into a slideshow. I think I have all these technical issues ironed out, so stay tuned for the next episode where, yeah, we'll hopefully have all that stuff nailed. Thanks for your patience, and say goodnight, guys.
Second player press start.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Second Player Press Start. This is a podcast about video games where two friends get together and chat about them. As always, I'm joined by my good friend Darren on the couch.
On the couch.
And if you're watching the video version of this podcast, we don't wear these clothes all the time. We just happen to record 2 episodes in one night.
Well said, sir.
For continuity's sake, if you're like, hey, I recognize that t-shirt that Darren was wearing.
That's true. Yeah, we were doing, so we had a break in between episodes because we try to record multiple so that we got a backlog and we don't have to do this on such a consistent basis because we also like to play video games and not just talk about them.
Yeah.
But on the way back from the break, I'm like, wait a second, I'm going to be wearing the same shirt on the next show. And previous when we were doing this without video content, it's not something I really thought about. And now I'm like, maybe I should bring extra clothes when I come over.
Maybe we need a budget for like wardrobe changes.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah, so logistics aside, we are here today to talk about a game that Darren was finally able to install on his computer because it was 80 gigs in size.
86 gigabytes? Yeah, something like that.
And this was a game that I don't know if it's still being offered as free or if it was free for a period of time.
That's a good question. I don't know.
But it's been out for a while, and I purchased it on console, I think, when it first came out, but I didn't end up playing a ton of it up until I built a computer, and we both added this game to our libraries because it was free, and that is Destiny 2.
Destiny 2, which means there was a Destiny 1.
There was a Destiny 1, which I played a fair bit of. And actually, let's rewind. Let's bring it back. So Destiny 1 and 2 is developed by Bungie, who are most known for making the first 3 Halo games.
Halo, yeah.
They then decided to leave Microsoft and start their own. Well, they're still called Bungie, right?
Yeah, so just essentially move studio, I guess.
Yeah.
To be owned by Activision.
Yeah.
Activision Blizzard or whatever.
Actually, I don't even think Activision owns them. I just think they publish the game.
Okay.
Because I think there was a story recently saying that they the next Destiny game is actually not going to be published by Activision.
Okay.
So they were able to take that IP with them.
Gotcha.
Kind of nuts because the reputation Activision has is kind of these corporate overlords, which we kind of talked about on our last episode. Where was I going with this? Yeah, so Bungie, they used to make Halo.
They're more of an independent studio.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they used to make Halo. They decided to kind of go on their own and develop Destiny, which, I mean, you can tell a lot of the kind of graphical style and the way the characters look has a very Halo
Yes,
feel.
that's definitely something I'll bring up.
The way the characters jump, for instance, kind of has that floaty kind of mechanic that Halo kind of has a little bit. The way the guns feel
The music.
the music for sure.
Yeah.
Feels very Halo-esque. I mean, I think we both enjoyed Halo back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. Halo is something I got some good time into. I never owned the Xbox. My brother did. Had it in our house. Uh, but the fact that you could play 4-player split screen was, I mean, it's like GoldenEye, right?
Yeah.
Going back to those first person shooter days and like, oh, you're looking at my screen, don't do that, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's not fair. But that was fantastic. I know my brother and I and other friends, whether you or others, we put a lot of time into that game, specifically the first one, because Halo 2 was also available for the Xbox, but I think by that time, I don't think we played it as much as the first one.
No.
I think that kind of time had passed, just even in our lives, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we kind of grew up a little bit.
got sadder
Yes.
inside.
But the joy is back because we're playing another Bungie developed game, and
Or is it?
or is it back?
You'll find out next time.
Yes, cut the episode
Just
short.
joking.
Where am I going? So I guess we'll start with Destiny 1, which I think you may have like checked out when you were here once, maybe.
I watched some stuff. Maybe even you play it.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
But I never played it myself. I remember some of the early video content, like 3 or whatever, showcasing the game. And the idea was very interesting to me, very compelling. And the style was very compelling.
Yeah.
But that's all I can really say about that first foray.
So, yeah, I guess my kind of story arc with Destiny 1 was because I pre-ordered the game, I got into the beta of the game, which came out a few months before the game actually launched.
Okay.
And some friends also got into the game, and we were all playing on PlayStation, and I thought, like, we were having such a good time with this game. It was like, oh my god, this is awesome. Like, me and my buddies were chatting, and we're doing these quests, and it's this kind of cooperative multiplayer world. It kind of feels like an MMO.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh man, the potential of this game is going to be great. Because from what it seemed in the beta, it's like you had a handful of things you could do and a few worlds that you could visit, and it's like, wow, that must mean like the full game, it's going to be this huge, like, expansive thing. Like I can't wait to play this. And then the full game came out, and there really wasn't much content beyond what was offered in that beta. So
Gotcha.
by the time the full game came out and I played through what I had already played through in the beta, I was like, is this really all this is? There really wasn't, like, I guess maybe my expectations after playing the beta was like, this game's going to be this huge, massive world. It's going to be like World of Warcraft, where
Right.
me and my buddies were going to, travel all over the galaxy and do all these cool quests together. But sadly, that game fell very short, and my expectations weren't met, and that kind of sucked. Had I not played the beta, would I have felt the same way? Maybe not. But it was just it just sucked that thinking that the beta was just a small slice when it ended up being a larger slice.
Do you remember how they set those expectations? I mean, you remember back that far? If it was just an assumption that you made, or if there was maybe some telltale signs that this was going to be more expansive?
I think the fact that they didn't really communicate like how much this beta would cover kind of left it open. Like, these are the guys that made Halo, right?
Right,
Like, they
yeah.
made these pretty epic games. So
Yeah.
I was thinking, even from like a single player perspective, like in Halo, you traveled to these many worlds and different locations. And then it turned out in the first Destiny game, like there was only really a handful of different locations that you were visiting. And I was kind of hoping it would be more than that.
Right.
So Destiny 2 kind of rolled around, and they were kind of promising to build upon kind of, more worlds and more things to do. I had a friend that was, despite kind of the shortcomings, he was really into the first Destiny game.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of picked up Destiny 2 in the hopes of kind of playing alongside him. But for whatever reasons, our schedules didn't really line up.
Right.
And I didn't really find myself going back to that second game. So I didn't get terribly far into it to kind of learn whether or not this would be a game that kind of lived up to the expectations set by the first game.
Sure.
So that's all I really... It was pretty much that first initial part that I did on the console, and then I kind of left it alone until we played recently. So yeah, we decided to play it together because it was offered as a free thing to download.
Yeah.
So you cleared some space on your hard drive.
Yeah, when I went to download it, and I have a hard drive at the time, and I still do, a hard drive dedicated just for video games. So I have my work hard drive that I boot into to do work, and I do freelance and consulting and stuff like that. And I needed to keep enough separation. I didn't want to buy two computers, but I needed enough separation where I couldn't just on a break start up a video game. So I kept my work computer game free, because otherwise there's too much temptation, right? Like I'm already working from home in my underwear, so there's nobody staring over my shoulder telling me to get back to work. Right? All right. So anyway, I put it on I dual boot my computer to boot into another hard drive, which is all where Steam is and Blizzard and all this kind of stuff, right? So I go to install it, and it's like almost 90 gigs, this thing, and I'm like, wait. So I need to install 90 gigs before I can even start the game. Because there's games that I've played before where, based on the download size, not only is it not 90 gigs, but you can play after a certain amount gets downloaded, because that they front load the tutorial or the early parts of the game in the download with the textures and all that kind of stuff. So I can still start playing the game before the whole thing downloads. But not only was that not a thing, I needed that much space, which meant I needed to figure out my hard drive space. And this is where I have all my Steam games and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I need to buy a new hard drive. So weeks and weeks, and finally, I've got my new hard drive. I've installed my new hard drive. I've reinstalled Windows on this drive so that it could be my new, my new game drive, because I figured if I was upgrading, I may well make it worthwhile. And that's my story. So now Destiny 2's installed, and we start playing together.
Yeah.
Or so I thought.
Yeah, so I think one evening we both boot up the game and come to the realization, oh wait, there's a bunch of stuff we got to do first before we can start playing.
Yes. So it is a multiplayer game where we can join up in fire teams, fire squads, something like that, and play together. But until we reach a certain stage in the game and a certain level, maybe even, and it's still not that clear to me, to be honest, we couldn't even see each other in the game. We couldn't even join up and do content together or experience the game together. We had to go through this story sequence before we got to the stage where that was allowed. Though again, there was nothing telling us that. We just figured that out because we couldn't do it.
Right. Yeah. And I guess because I didn't play much of it on the console, I didn't realize that that was kind of a prerequisite for playing together.
Right.
So we probably had to play I think even when we thought we could play together, there was still another little
That's
bit
right.
where I
Yeah.
was like a little bit further ahead than you were.
Yeah.
And then you had to play a little bit to kind of get to the same point.
Yeah, so there's a place where you get to after the first kind of story sequence called the farm. And I was like a level 2 or 3 when I got there, and I was like, okay, I'm seeing all these planes land in here, and this is the place where I actually get to interact with NPCs that can, like, a marketplace and sell me stuff. So I'm like, I've probably played enough now, because this was after we stopped playing that night, and I think that's when we played Heroes of the Storm.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. Um, and then we're like, okay, well, let's do our own solo play for like a week, and then we'll try to reschedule and start it up again. But when we started up again, we still couldn't play together. In fact, we could add each other to teams, so we could talk in game on the headsets, and you could see on the screen that, you know, James was now part of my team, or vice versa, whoever was the leader. But we couldn't do any content together, and there was nothing telling us why we couldn't do content together. It was just like, a player in your party can't go here, or something like that, when you went to click on the stuff we wanted to
Yeah.
do. So that meant that we had to spend more time solo trying to figure out, well, how far do I need to get? Do I need to? It turned out it was another story element. That could have been loud on the screen, but it turned out it was another story element where I needed to get to a stage with my character where, as the hunter class that I was, where I got access to, I think it was just called the light or something like that. And that was this epic story moment where, for me, it wasn't that epic because I was frustrated that James and I couldn't play together. It was just kind of this like, okay, finally, can we do this now? But once I got there, then I got back to the farm, which is where I already was. But now I'm able to pick up with James, and we could finally see each other's characters in game.
Yeah. And then, yeah, I think we started a mission.
Yeah, we first went to a planet to the next mission. I think, let me see. It was called Red War. That was like the not the quest, but the overarching story kind
Yeah.
of thing. And inside that quest there was inside that overarching story there was our first quest, or our first mission point,
Yeah.
to talk to this particular character.
And the game's really weird how it handles, like, it's almost like the person that starts the quest kind of gets all the little, like, arrows of where to go. Because I think there was one instance where, like, I saw, like, an arrow pointing down to this, like, bunker that we had to go to.
Right.
And I think you had, like, no indication of,
Yeah,
like...
I was trying to follow your character because you're like, oh yeah, we just go over here. It's showing me on my screen.
Yeah.
And I thought, where is it showing you this? And unless I followed James's character into this hole in the ground, I would have had no idea that this was the thing that we were doing together.
Yeah. And I think that moment's actually playing on our video right now. Yeah, I can see myself kind of bring up the map, trying to figure out, like, how we navigate to this next point.
Right.
And yeah, it's almost like the co-op aspect of this game was bolted onto, like, a single player thing. Because even the cutscenes and
Right.
stuff,
Yeah.
there was, like, no mention or showing of, like, your other character.
Right.
It was like we were just playing, how would you describe it, like the solo campaign.
Well, actually, Halo was the same way.
I guess it was, yeah.
Whenever you got into a cutscene, because you were playing Master Chief,
Yeah.
you were the only Master Chief. So even though there was 2 Master Chiefs on the screen, when you got into any cutscene stuff, it was 1 Master Chief.
Yeah.
And the NPC dialogue was directed at you, the players, plural, because you were both playing Master Chief.
Which, yeah, I could excuse for a single player game that has co-op as, like, a side thing, right?
Right.
But when your whole game is, like, this supposed to be this huge, like, connected multiplayer, like, this is borderline MMO-esque game, you would expect that they would compensate for other players playing at the same time during
Right.
these campaign missions,
Yeah.
which the campaign missions seem to be the most interesting aspect of this game. Because beyond that, you're kind of in these open worlds where you can grind out killing enemies for loot.
Right.
There's like these public events that happen, which are kind of interesting,
Hmm.
where it'll say, in 1 minute there's an event happening over here.
Right.
Whoever's in
Right.
this area, you automatically kind of join together, and you have to defeat a horde of enemies or
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
the objective is, and that's kind of interesting and neat on its own. But um, you would think like the meat of this game is this campaign,
Hmm.
and since you have the ability to work together as a team, and I think you can do beyond more than two people, right?
Yes, that's my expectation.
So like I can imagine like how much more confusing it would be if you had like 3 or 4 people
Hmm.
trying to all navigate the same campaign together but separately. It's
Yeah.
really strange.
Speaking of that, another two things jump into my head. But number one is, so we go through this story mission where the planet's like getting attacked and everything's falling apart and everything's in chaos, and then there's these um, alien creatures that look very similar to the Halo alien creatures, I might add,
No way.
coming to you don't say, coming to attack this planet and steal the, I don't know, thing, the MacGuffin, the Dinklebot. I don't know. And then, but all this is happening, but I'm not seeing a single other real player going through this content. So I know that there's other people playing the game right now. In fact, in the beginning, I knew even James was playing the exact same thing, maybe at the exact same time I was. But there was no way that there was any interaction until I get to this stage, and then this stage, and then this stage, and then finally I get back to the same map, the same location I was at before, where nobody else is a real player, and now there's tons of real players in there. And there's some that are much higher level than me, which is an expectation for this hub world or hub
Yeah.
area, right, that you'd see in an MMO. But I just remember like World of Warcraft back in the day, or other MMOs I've played, and in your starting zone, you just start up and there's quests and things like that. But you can tell that this is a world that other people are also experiencing at the same time you are. And maybe for the sake of the story or the narrative, it's like this sequence needs to be solo because we need to get you from point A to point B to learn the game and to get through your class, and to get to your class initial weapon and abilities. And that can be a very customized, linear, focused story for you. And I get that, but that's totally not what I was expecting.
Yeah. And yeah, I felt like the story wasn't that deep that it couldn't apply to 2 people versus one, right?
It was yeah, it wasn't a very engaging story. And even though I recognize some of the voice actors, and these are people that I've liked in TV and film and stuff, it was like, I don't know, this just seems cheesy to me. It just seems like the other thing I was going to mention is that those public events, when we were in a group together, because you were the leader of the group, when you walked into the little circle that said this is the public event, I wasn't there. I was, I don't know, screwing around somewhere else trying to figure out where to go. But because you were in the team lead, as soon as you walked in there, now I was also in the public event. So I'm getting these notifications on the screen about what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm not seeing any of the things that you're seeing because I'm in a different area of
Right.
the game. And it just so happened there wasn't any, at least from what I remember, there wasn't any big notification that you've just entered into this public event and it's in this area of your map and go here and do this thing. Again, I was flying in completely blind. Finally, I found where you were and we started shooting things. And then that was it. And there was some other level 50s in there, and we were like level 2 or 3
Yeah.
and killed some things. And then we got some loot, add loots, and
Which like that aspect of the game, like I liked the shooting.
yeah.
I liked, hitting the guys and then yellow numbers pop up
Yes.
above their head, which means I'm getting, more XP, which is kind of rewarding in a weird way. Um like, yeah, like the shooting and that kind of stuff like felt like solid. I mean,
So I wanted to talk to you about the shooting in particular because I felt that all the guns felt very similar and very fragile.
hmm,
So I've played a lot of FPSs, right? Whether it's the multiplayer first-person shooter competitive stuff, or whether it's the like Mass Effect has a third-person element to it, granted. But even going back to Borderlands, right, where it has some of these, it's a co-op game.
yeah,
It's in this world that's massive, and you go from quest point to quest point, and there's quest givers, and there's loot drops, and level ups, and all this kind of stuff, right? But some of the Borderlands guns, there was a bajillion guns, I think was the marketing, right? But the guns honestly felt different to handle, right? And some shotguns felt different than other shotguns, even. So it wasn't just the nuance of, okay, I'm firing a pistol, I'm firing a shotgun, but it was even within the range of shotguns, some felt different because of the way they fired or the sounds they made. And in this game, I didn't really feel that.
yeah,
Like, yes, when I'm aiming down sights, things look a little different. Or if I go into scope mode and a sniper rifle, things feel different. But the weapons didn't feel like they packed any kind of punch, I guess is the way to say it. And I didn't feel like I was getting, it didn't feel like I was getting more damage, even if the numbers said I was, with using a different type of gun versus a faster, lighter gun versus a heavy gun. It just
right.
didn't feel that way to me. I've talked to another player, friend of mine who's played the game, and he actually said the same thing. I asked him just an open-ended question: how did you feel about the gunplay in the game? And he said the same thing without any prompting. So that's why I was interested in your take on it, because it sounds to you like you were kind of okay with the state of things.
Yeah, I think for the most part, like it was I think a rifle,
Right, right.
and
Like scope rifle.
yeah, I
Okay.
think it had a little scope to it, and I was hitting dudes in the head, and that was kind of making me happy. And
Yeah.
um, the other gun that I think I had was like a submachine gun, um, and that kind of felt like I was using the rifle. So if I was happy with the rifle and this machine gun thing kind of operated the same, I was kind of happy.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I didn't like it wasn't anything special. Like it just felt kind of Halo-esque to me.
Mm.
Because even the Halo games, I mean, you had kind of your pistol, which in some ways almost felt like a sniper gun. Like you could pick guys off with a pistol.
Right.
Um, but the core like shooting and moving felt like Halo, and maybe it was just kind of a familiar thing for me, having played Halo games, where it kind of felt like, oh yeah, I remember what this is like, and this feels kind of comfortable. Um, yeah, the gunplay wasn't like anything special, but it just felt like putting on an old pair of shoes. Like
Right.
it
Right.
just kind of felt comfortable.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the reason it surprised me the most is because the music was super epic
right.
and the story was supposed to be super epic. I didn't really have a really engaging feeling with the story. Um, and the graphics were gorgeous, right?
Yeah, it looks really
But when it
nice.
came to like switching to a different gun and trying it out and shooting a dude, it's like, this is kind of lacking. There wasn't I didn't have fun doing what I assume is the core mechanism of the game, is getting new guns and shooting new dudes.
Yeah,
And that just didn't feel good to me. Just kind of felt kind of bland is the best way to say it. It didn't,
yeah,
like I said, the that force feedback that you get when you're using different weapons and you're like shooting at the roof because you can't control the gun. Like I wanted it to feel like I was shooting a different gun. And I know I'm just clicking a mouse, but in other games, whether it's a handheld controller, maybe it's because in a console game with the controller, I've got a vibrate function in there, so it gives me more feel to it than a mouse. But I have played FPSs on the computer with a mouse and keyboard before, and those guns felt like I was shooting them.
for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'll say I had fun, but it wasn't anything spectacular. Like it wasn't I mean, I think the other game I would compare it to is Warframe that we played.
Okay.
And that felt... I think I had more fun playing Warframe than I did Destiny 2, because Warframe seems like a game that was like, okay, we're not really going to take the story stuff too seriously.
Right.
You're going to team up with your friends and you're going to go on these levels and you're going to, here's an objective and you do it and you get out of there, and that's kind of it. Whereas Destiny 2 just seems so wrapped up in like all this other stuff that isn't really that important at the end of the day, or didn't really make it seem that important, or didn't really feel important to me once I did it.
Yeah, even though it seemed like it was supposed to be important, it didn't feel like it was.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd rather have a game like Warframe where it's just like, just go with your friends, just go on this mission and go slice some dudes up and have a good time. And
yeah. All right. Yeah. I can agree with that for sure.
And I think Destiny 2, I mean, maybe they're catering to more towards a single player audience, but it's like, why would you position this game as this kind of multiplayer thing?
Right.
And I guess speaking to multiplayer, I guess we should talk about the is it the Crucible, which was our
I forgot about that. I love it. Yes, let's talk about it.
So one thing that I've always enjoyed about Halo, I guess if we're going to keep comparing this game to Halo,
sure. Yeah.
One thing that we kind of started off this episode was talking about how we used to get together and play kind of our deathmatch, kind of local split screen deathmatch stuff, and that was like anybody could kind of play that game, right?
Yeah. Did you ever? I remember at some like youth nights and stuff, connect multiple TVs and Xboxes together to get like, was it 16 players on the screen at the same time, which is just like, at that time that technology didn't exist in any other than a LAN party, didn't exist in any other medium.
Yeah, I remember doing that, and even just doing like 4-player split screen like Halo 1 matches. We would play hours on end back in the day. So
all rockets, one hit kill kind of thing.
Yeah. Lots of fun, lots of good times were had. And even the later Halo games, like I think I've played most of them. And multiplayer, even online, has been kind of fun at a similar skill level. Like even if you're new to the game, you can hop in and you might get maybe a couple kills per match. But what we experienced in this game was not that. Again, I don't know if it was just like expectation, but so I guess the way the competitive multiplayer works is that your level progression and your weapon progression carries with you from kind of the outside game to this kind of multiplayer game.
Right.
So Darren and I, we decided to try this out, and we hop in, and
because we're already in a fire team together, we're automatically locked out of free-for-all mode.
Yeah.
Because we're duo queuing. We're queuing as two people.
Yeah.
We're also locked out of I think there was another single player team deathmatch. I don't know what it was. No, we played team deathmatch. Yeah. That's what it was. So there's a few options in there to pick from.
So as we hop into the game, you can see the level 2 and 3 above our heads, and then above everybody else's heads are 50s.
Right. On our team and the opponent's team.
Yeah. And then as the match starts, it's pretty much like one-hit kills for us the whole match in terms of not us doing one-hit kills, but...
Let's clarify.
Yes, being shot, like one shot and dying and then respawning, and then 2 seconds later the same thing happening. I guess maybe if there was some kind of like matchmaking, maybe we would have paired with maybe if there was more people playing at a similar skill level,
Right.
we might have been kind of pooled with only, level 2 to 10 or whatever it is.
Sure.
But that was not the case, and it was not a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, we had some laughs over it.
Yeah.
But it was at the expense of our feeling of utter failure in a situation where there was no hope of success. There's no way. Like, I think at some point you might have got a kill. I think.
No,
no.
I don't
I'm trying to remember because there was something where we were like, oh, I can't believe, or maybe it was just like I survived a firefight. Maybe that's what it was. Somebody shot at me and I didn't die when I got shot.
Yeah.
I was able to move around and then maybe somebody healed me or something. And at that time, we're still trying to figure out, well, what do our buttons even do? Like, how is this different from game we're playing? And if so, does that mean I have different abilities? Because there was no explanation of anything like that. So meanwhile, you're running around and sometimes you just spawn and you're like, okay, now I figured out that oh shoot, I just got headshot and I'm dead again.
Yeah. It was not a lot of fun. But I'm sure it's fun for those level 50 guys, right? Like, I've got this cool weapon that I've spent, 30 hours grinding out and getting.
Right.
And now I get to use that competitively. I'm sure that's awesome for them. But yeah, if you're going new into this game, I would kind of steer clear of that.
Yeah. It's also possible that maybe, so based on player count, we were playing like, I think 6v6 or something like that, right? So because we were queuing as 2 people in one team, it's possible that if we split up and then we did the free-for-all, that maybe matchmaking was better because there's more people in free-for-all, maybe.
Right.
And then we might have a better experience. But the fact of the matter is that we played this game to play together because that was the big expectation of the game. It's co-op from start to finish kind of thing. So when that happens, if there's only one option for us to queue to try out PvP, that's the one we're going to try.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what we did, and that's what just totally let us down.
Yeah, and the fact that, like, you would think that there would be some kind of, like, handicap settings of, like, okay, these guys, their guns are, like, mere, like, stones throwing at a tank kind of a thing, right? Like, you'd think that they would kind of increase our kind of weapons so that they were a bit more balanced towards these level 50 guys, but it was like bringing a knife to a gunfight, right? It was we had these puny little weapons and they've got their awesome sniper rifles that can.
Now that said, in the Guy Ritchie movie Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, the line is guns for show, knives for a pro.
Nice.
So knives to a gunfight. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, not as fun as I kind of hoped it would be, because I've had some good times playing Halo, both online as well as locally. So
yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I guess I'm still left disappointed by Destiny. I don't know if I could handle a third game. Like, I think it's
right. Yeah. And you're coming off of something that really excited you and then totally dropped the ball.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I'll give it another shot, and then still doesn't live up to expectation. And in this case, it's not even there's way more content, because at this point it sounds like, based on what I've experienced so far, more content isn't going to solve these issues or make what I'm experiencing any better. Is that accurate?
Yeah. And I think, like, by this point, I'm burnt out on the formula. Like, I admit, like, I had fun kind of wandering around with you and shooting some dudes, but I think that can only be so much fun for so long.
Right.
And it's not like we're starved for choice of games out there to play, right?
Very true.
So while I had a little bit of fun, I don't think it's enough fun for me to keep playing this game. And I think, like, Destiny, you had your time with me, but I think it's best if we of went our separate ways, and we saw other people.
It's not you, James. It's Destiny.
Yes.
Just saying.
But hey, I don't knock those that enjoy this game.
Oh, for sure.
Like I said, I have a pretty good friend who's really into Destiny, despite its shortcomings, and we've chatted at length about the shortcomings of Destiny. He kind of admits it, but he still has fun with it.
Sure.
So for those that enjoy it, like, hey, more power to you. But
right.
For me, yeah, I think there's a lot more out there to play that I could better spend my time with. So
right. Is there anything about, because there's a few notes that I have here that I wanted to mention about my single player experience, right? From, I already talked about the install and the size of the game and the hoops I had to jump through. But as soon as I loaded the thing up, I had this kind of white screen going on and then this loading icon, this epic Halo-esque music, right? And then the loading icon goes away and there's still the white screen and the music, but then the loading icon comes back. And I am loading to wait to load more of the loading that I'm waiting to load. I was like, wait, what's going on here? Like, can you just keep the loading icon going until you're done with the loading? Because right now you keep fooling me into thinking that it's loaded. It's not loaded. And that was just like, haven't we solved this problem before?
Right.
Like, if the game is still loading, just tell me the game is still loading. Don't try to pretend that it's not, only to then I don't know. It was just a really frustrating thing. And that was on top of the fact that as soon as I started up the game, this goes back to a PC issue, that the game would crash immediately. And it would jump to the loading screen and then crash on me. I did some problem solving and I figured it out. But that, when I finally got into it, then I get to the character generation. And some of the character generation parts, though interesting, the controls of them were super janky. Because what was happening was there was no way for me to affect the options screen. So everything just loaded at whatever settings the game thought was correct. And I'm running at a super ultra wide monitor because of work, right? So the settings weren't really good for me. And I would normally hit the escape button to go into the options to mess with the settings. But because of where I was in the game, it wasn't giving me options when I hit escape. My only option was exit to desktop. So I hit escape to fix the screen so that I can build my character. And I've already had these issues up to this point. And now my only option is to exit the game to the desktop. Like, so more frustration ensues, right? And then even in some of the character creation, I'm using the mouse, and the way that they use some of the user interface is you hover over things to learn about them and to like a drop down menu on a web browser. When you hover, it gives you more options. But I found that the way that it was done, if I move my mouse ever so slightly, like some of those drop down menus on web pages that I hate, all of a sudden everything that was going on just disappeared on me. And I need to go back to this menu to move it over this way, to move down, to get back to the menu that I was trying to select in the first place. And I was like, again, this is the first user interface I get to use in the game, and I can't use it to make my character. It's just this weird thing that I was like, everything about up to this point tells me that there's money behind here. But somehow I'm running into issues that, remember when we talked about State of Decay?
Yeah.
And we're like, yes, but we can forgive them because this is a more indie title, even though it was published by a larger publisher.
Microsoft, yeah.
The developer was still a small unit, right? But I just can't excuse something like this, especially when they've gone through their paces of Halo and another Destiny game. They have all this under their belt. I'm like, this is a simple user interface thing. I'm having a hell of a time using a mouse to build a character. Anyway, so finally I get into the game, and when we're going through the tutorial mode, I don't find until later that there's certain buttons I could be using because they never explain it to me. And I don't know if you found that, especially playing through on a console and then coming to a mouse and keyboard. But my expectation in the tutorial was like, use WASD to move, and use right trigger to aim down sights, and use your left trigger to fire. Now, some of these things I know inherently from FPS game.
Yeah.
But there was some things I didn't know that were not ever explained to me. That there was no prompt on the screen. And the other thing I was thinking, from a total noob, if this is like, if I've just got a new computer because I want, and I've got the Blizzard app and I want to try this game, it was free, and I've never really played a game like this before, I don't even know how to move or shoot, and nothing like that was explained on the screen. So I would have had no idea how to even move without like keyboard mashing.
Right.
It's like, again, if this is a tutorial, if this is my first experience, not only with your game, but with the game this genre, I've got nothing to work with.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. So those are some really frustrating things for me. Experiencing this game for the first time, not coming from another Destiny, having played other Bungie games that I've enjoyed before, and it was just like, wow, just it was as poor as my experience when we were trying to connect in game to play. And there was nothing explaining why we couldn't do that. There was nothing explaining why I can see James is in the game, but I can't connect with him. Why? Well, there's no reason. It's because of this level requirement that's not made explicit anywhere.
Yeah.
So there's all these little things that I felt had nothing to do with the game or even with the like with the story or the graphics or anything. It's just these user interface things that were so frustrating on this really small detail level that it was like it's like there's no polish here at all. And why is this happening? Well, I don't know. I don't why I'm running into issues.
The only thing I could maybe chalk it up to is, I mean, it is a PC port, right? Like,
Okay.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
I don't think these games were released at the same time. Like, what I should say is, I don't think the PC was done at the same time as the console releases were. I know
Okay.
that they were probably first and foremost focused on console, and then it probably got ported to PC. That's my guess. I feel like I heard that somewhere, but
Okay.
so I could see maybe like some of those like issues being down to a PC port, which would make sense on like some of the navigation things,
Right. Yeah.
like the fact that you couldn't change resolution or graphics settings right at the start would make sense, because in a console menu you don't have to do that, right?
Yeah, the most settings you have are Xbox based.
Yeah.
Right? Like widescreen or whatever.
Yeah, so that, I mean, that could be
Sure.
an excuse, but I mean, if they decide to publish it for this platform, they should take in consideration some of the things that people on this platform would expect
Sure.
to do from the start.
And the only other gripe, because we first got together to play, we couldn't play. First time we installed, everything was ready to go, and we scheduled, and we're like, yeah, let's do this because you're recording it and we're ready to roll, and we can't play. Okay, so let's do something else, and then we'll play at our own pace. So that means that then I log in a second time to play solo. Okay? So that's fine. So I log in to play solo, but when I log in to play solo that second time, whereas in the first, where I first enter into the game, I go through the sequences that I've already talked about. When I log in a second time, faced with like pop-up after pop-up after pop-up about new content and new high level content, and you can do this now with this particular gun, and look at the skin we released. And as far as I was concerned, I was still a totally new player that had no experience with anything. So all this advertising,
This wasn't relevant.
it had nothing to do with my position in the game or anything that would even excite me or engage me, because it was content, as far as I could tell, that was so far past where I'm at, was given out for the purpose of keeping high level players coming back, right?
Yeah.
And this is the new stuff we released, and I understand that from an MMO perspective, right? Like your high tier content, or your content gates for people that haven't reached certain levels, or your end game content, right? But for me, that I log in a second time, and there's just so much. I'm also presented with a totally different user interface than I had ever experienced up to that point, because now I'm logging in real. I'm not just going through the motions of the narrative that's presented to me and clicking yes, next, or whatever. Instead, I'm put into this whole unique user interface that I have no experience with
Yeah.
because I was never shown this before. And that was a really jarring experience, to the point where I was overwhelmed. And I play games all the time, and I play games. We talked about Heroes of the Storm last episode. It's got a high learning curve, but the presentation of some of these other games has never been so um, user interface part of it so frustrating for me. That at least in recent memory that I can remember, where it was like that was. And there's so many ways that you can easily do that better or filter that content out or say, look, this player's only put in 1 hour in the game or 30 minutes in the game or whatever it is. Showing them this stuff is totally.
Yeah, and it doesn't make sense for, as games are kind of moving towards this like games as a service kind of thing. Like the longer tail of your game, like it's not like, traditionally say games of, 10 years ago,
Yeah.
you may have a multiplayer game that, typically like the interest of a game kind of peaks and then it kind of
Right.
wanes out, right? But
Yeah.
whereas games like Destiny and other kind of multiplayer games, they're having a longer tail, meaning that um, you're going to get new players joining all the time, right?
Right.
So you need to think of, okay, you need to cater to your hardcore players by showing them new
Sure.
stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you're going to get new players like yourself that are going to join, a year after the game has launched because you've heard some good stuff about it.
Right.
You still need to talk to those people because they're going to be, if you keep those people happy, they're going to be playing your game another year from now, right?
Yes.
And then newer players are going to be jumping on board
and purchasing new content and
Yeah.
like expansions and cosmetics and whatever your real money system is. Absolutely.
I mean, maybe they're looking at the metrics and they're adjusting for that. Maybe they see such a small amount of people kind of jumping in this late in the game that they're like, you know what, our attention is better served towards
Sure.
the people that we already have.
And that's a reasonable expectation, except for this game just went free.
Right.
And you're like, okay, well, everybody who's going to play it now, nobody who's played it before is coming back to the game. It's free because they already own it. It's on their account.
Yeah.
But if in the last month or whatever it was, they're saying the early level content in this game is now free to all. Maybe it was limited time and we.
Yeah.
But that means you're expecting. The reason you do that is to expect an influx of new players that then you can grab, and hopefully they'll say, I like this experience enough that I'm going to buy the full game. And they totally lost it on.
Yeah.
Right? Now there's definitely the possibility that if you and I enjoyed ourselves and there's something to be had here, and now we play a few hours this night and then it turns into a few hours a week or whatever, just like you used to do with your friends on the first one.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna throw down my 40 whatever bucks for the game and unlock the extra content that I don't have yet.
Yeah.
And we keep going, and then maybe that turns into expansion or cosmetics or microtransaction stuff.
Yeah.
But no thanks.
No.
That face.
Yeah.
Sigh.
It's sad because I think the potential was there. Like, I think the vision of Destiny from what I played of that first game, like, to have a kind of an MMO-esque game that was a first-person shooter.
Yeah.
Like,
in that world too.
Yeah.
You know? Because I remember those first videos of the first Destiny. Even now, I have visions of them in my head. Not like, it's not a crazy person, but just like I can remember thinking about some of the stuff that I saw in some of those first playthrough in-game from the developers. I was like, that sounds awesome. I would totally love to play that. And because it was console, I never had the opportunity.
Yeah.
So now I was like, man, not only do I have the opportunity, it's free, and I can play with James, and it's part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is fantastic. And
Womp womp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that kind of sums it up.
Thanks for joining us. Tonight's been a
yes.
really happy episode.
So yeah, I guess Destiny. We should the other people.
Yeah.
Guess is how we'll wrap that up.
It's you.
It's a shame.
It is, yeah. I definitely see potential in the game. Some neat concepts, neat ideas that I've seen executed in other uh, shooter games, but there is some stuff in here like I can't remember the last shooter I played a hunter character where as my cooldown fills up and I get this ability where I automatically go in this awesome melee mode, this staff, and I'm jumping all over the place like a force user in some Star Wars game.
Yeah.
And that felt awesome. I've never really experienced that in another FPS before. So there's elements in the game that are unique to this franchise that I'm not seeing in other places. But if that, if that's the only thing that I'm getting out of it, sparks of interest, where a big portion of the game don't really deliver any other way, then it's not enough to hold my interest, especially when there's so many, said before, there's so much content out there. Everybody wants your attention and have limited time and limited attention. So you have to make value judgments. Is this something that's going to sustain me as well as, if not better than other things that I'm putting my time towards?
Yeah.
And if not, then forget about it. I'll just do what I've been doing.
For sure. So yeah, I think I guess these past couple episodes we've been looking at kind of games that have been free. I think future episodes, I think we'd like to kind of explore some more of these like free to play games, especially now that we have a similar platform that we can play together with. That's not to say that we'll get back to playing some kind of console stuff where we can kind of do some couch co-op, because that was kind of the spirit of this podcast.
The impetus, if you will.
Yeah, I think that kind of wraps up our thoughts on Destiny 2. Yeah. I also had technical issues with the game, but it was related to my video card being used as a tool for mining Bitcoin, which, sure.
Who knew?
Yeah, I've since uninstalled the game, so I guess I won't know.
Yeah.
But I suspect that I could run that game fine now. But anywho, with that said, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.
Yes.
As always, for information on this podcast, you can visit our website at secondplayerpressstart.com.
And second with two and secondplayerpressstart.com.
And until next time, thanks for listening and watching again. And say goodnight, Darren.
Good.